The ground shook under Nari's feet as another explosion rocked the city. She ran through the empty streets, her blue skin pale with fear. Above her, the sky burned orange from the fires that spread across Veos Prime. The Korthak ships hung in the air like dark metal clouds, raining death on her peaceful world. Nari was one of the last Villani government officials still alive. Most of the others had died when the Korthak first attacked 3 days ago. She carried a small data pad with the emergency codes needed to use the planetary communication system. It was their only hope. The communication center sat at the top of a tall building in the city's heart. Nari could see it through the smoke, but getting there would not be easy. Korthak soldiers walked through the streets, their thick armor making them look like moving mountains. They shot at anything that moved. A group of Korthak warriors passed by the building where Nari hid. She held her breath and pressed against the wall. The aliens were twice as tall as any Villani, with gray skin like stone and red eyes that glowed in the dark. They carried weapons that could cut through metal like paper. When they moved on, Nari ran. Her long legs carried her quickly across the broken street. Glass from shattered windows crunched under her feet. She jumped over fallen pieces of buildings and dodged around burning vehicles. The communication center's doors were locked, but Nari's government codes still worked. She ran to the elevator, but the power was out. The stairs would take forever, but she had no choice. Up and up she climbed, her heart beating fast from fear and effort. On the 20th floor, she could hear the sounds of fighting outside. Villani voices cried for help, but there was nothing she could do for them now. She had to reach the communication room. She had to send the message. Finally, she reached the top floor. The communication center was dark except for emergency lights that blinked red and yellow. Most of the equipment was broken, but one console still worked. Nari sat down and began typing with shaking hands. She opened all the channels she could find. Council frequencies, trade routes, diplomatic channels, every signal path that might reach friendly ears. The message was simple but desperate. This is Ambassador Nari of the Villani Republic on Veos Prime. We are under attack by the Korthak Empire. Our cities are burning. Our people are dying. We need help. Please, anyone who receives this message, help us. We are peaceful people. We have done nothing wrong. The coordinates are... She sent the location of their world and everything she knew about the Korthak forces. 20 warships in orbit. Thousands of soldiers on the ground. Weapons that could level city blocks. The Villani had no military. They had never needed one before this day. As Nari sent the message again and again, the building shook from another attack. Dust fell from the ceiling. She could hear Korthak voices in the stairwell below. They were coming. Far away, in a part of space the Villani had never seen, Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship. The Indomitable was a human warship, built for fighting and made to last. It moved through space like a metal shark, dark and deadly. Daeho was a career military officer. He had fought in 3 wars and lived through battles that would have broken weaker men. His face showed the lines of someone who had seen too much death, but his eyes were kind. He cared about his crew like they were his family. The ship's communication officer, Yoonbi Park, sat at her station monitoring space traffic. It was routine work, but important. You never knew when something interesting might come through the void. Captain, Yoonbi called out, I'm getting something strange. It's not on any of our normal channels. Daeho walked over to her station. What kind of something? It sounds like a distress call. But it's not human. The language is different and the signal is coming from way outside our territory. Tactical Officer Woo Jin Lee looked up from his console. Could be a trap, Captain. Pirates sometimes use fake distress calls to lure ships into ambushes. Navigator Sora Choi shook her head. The signal is too far away for pirates. It's coming from the other side of the galaxy. Daeho listened to the message as Yoonbi played it back. Even translated by the computer, the fear in the alien voice was clear. This was no trick. Someone was in real trouble. Analysis, Daeho ordered. Chief Engineer Taemin Han pulled up star charts on his screen. It's a long way, Captain. We'd need to take the whole battle group and use maximum power to get there in time. Medical Officer Dr. Ye-Jin Song looked at the message details. They mentioned civilian casualties. Lots of them. If this is real, we're talking about millions of lives. Woo Jin frowned. Captain, we don't know anything about these aliens. They could be criminals. They could be enemies of humanity. Why should we risk our ships for them? Daeho was quiet for a moment. He thought about his training and his duty. Human space was peaceful now, but it had not always been that way. There had been times when humanity needed help and found none. Times when the strong preyed on the weak and no one cared. Because it's the right thing to do, Deho said finally. If someone calls for help, you answer. That's what separates us from the monsters. He opened a channel to the other ships in their battle group. 4 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and a supply ship. Not the biggest fleet in human space, but strong enough to make a difference. All ships, this is Captain Kim. We've received a distress call from an unknown species under attack by hostile forces. We're changing course to render assistance. Prepare for maximum speed and possible combat operations. The responses came back quickly. Captain Jong-Soo Park of the Defiant, Captain Hye-Rim Lee of the Thunderbolt. One by one, every ship commander agreed. They would follow Deho into the unknown to help people they had never met. As the human ships changed course and jumped to faster-than-light speed, Nari was still in the communication center. The Korthak soldiers had reached her floor. She could hear them breaking down doors, getting closer to her position. She sent the message one more time and added a final line. If anyone receives this, please remember us. We tried to be good neighbors to all species. We wanted only peace. The door exploded inward. 3 Korthak warriors filled the doorway, their weapons pointed at her. The largest one spoke in rough, broken Villani. You send messages. Who do you call? Nari lifted her head with what little dignity she had left. I called for justice. I called for someone to stop you from murdering innocent people. The Korthak leader laughed, a sound like grinding metal. No one comes. Council species are weak. They talk and make treaties, but they do not fight. Your people will serve the Empire or die. But the Korthak was wrong. Even as he spoke, the human fleet raced through space at speeds that bent reality. Captain Deho Kim stood on his bridge and watched the stars stream past. They would arrive in 18 hours. He hoped it would be soon enough. Behind them, 6 more human battle groups had received the message and were following. Admiral Sun Woo Park himself was coming with the main fleet. When humans heard a call for help, they answered in force. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you asked the wrong species for help. Elder Council leader Zephyr sat in the underground bunker that had become the Villani government's last hiding place. Around him, the few surviving officials whispered in fear. The lights flickered every time the Korthak bombs fell above them. Any word from the council? Asked Minister Lyra, her voice barely above a whisper. Zephyr shook his head sadly. The nearest council world is too far away. Even if they wanted to help, they could not get here in time. Ambassador Nari had made it back to the bunker after sending her message. Her clothes were torn and dirty, but she was alive. She sat in the corner, staring at nothing. The humans answered, she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Minister Corrin spoke first. Humans, but they are Deathworlders. Zephyr felt his hopes sink even lower. He had read the Galactic Council files on humanity. They came from a world so dangerous that it created natural killers, a place where everything tried to kill everything else. The humans who survived such a world could only be monsters themselves. They will not save us, Zephyr said with certainty. They will take our world for themselves. At best, we will trade Korthak masters for human ones. Above ground, the battle continued. Korthak ground forces moved through the city like a plague, destroying everything beautiful the Villani had built. They set up camps in the parks where Villani children once played. They used the museums as weapon storage. High in orbit, Korthak Fleet Admiral Brackus looked down at the burning world with satisfaction. His ships hung in space like metal vultures, their weapons still hot from bombing the planet below. Status report, Brackus demanded from his command throne. Resistance is nearly finished, Admiral. His aide reported. A few pockets of civilians hide in bunkers, but they will surrender soon enough. Brackus nodded. The Korthak Empire had conquered 17 worlds using the same method. Strike fast, hit hard, break their spirit. Most species gave up after the first day of bombing. The Villani had lasted 3 days, but they were finished now. What about that distress call our sensors detected? Sent to the Galactic Council frequencies, Admiral. The nearest Council world is 2 weeks away by their fastest ships. Even if they come, it will be too late, Brackus laughed. The Galactic Council species were all the same. Soft creatures who preferred to talk instead of fight. They would send diplomats and negotiators while the Villani died. By the time any help arrived, Veos Prime would belong to the Empire. Continue the bombardment of the remaining cities, Brackus ordered. I want this world broken completely by tomorrow. But the Admiral was wrong about who was coming to help. At the edge of the solar system, space itself seemed to tear apart. Points of light appeared in the darkness, growing larger and brighter. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the tactical display light up with enemy contacts. 20 Korthak warships orbited the planet, just as the distress call had said. They were big ships built for destruction. Analysis, Dae-ho ordered. Wu Jin-Lee worked his console quickly. Heavy cruiser-class vessels, Captain. Thick armor, powerful weapons. They outgun us ship to ship. But they're spread out, added Navigator Sora Choi. Half of them are on the far side of the planet. If we hit fast, we can take them in smaller groups. Communications Officer Yoon-B Park looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface. They're bombing civilian areas. Dr. Yejin Song checked her medical scanners. Life sign readings show millions of people still alive down there, but the numbers are dropping fast. Dae-ho felt anger rise in his chest. These Korthak were not just conquerors. They were butchers who targeted innocent people. He had fought species like this before, and he knew there was only one way to deal with them. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Attack formation Gamma, we go in fast and hard. Primary targets are the ships in low orbit. Save the civilians first, destroy the enemy second. The human ships moved like hunting wolves. They did not announce themselves or demand surrender. They simply attacked with deadly precision. Admiral Brackus was reviewing bombing reports when his bridge exploded with warning alarms. What is happening? He roared. His tactical officer's voice shook with fear. Unknown ships, Admiral. They just appeared and opened fire. The destroyer squadron is gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? Destroyed, sir. All 4 ships in less than 2 minutes. Brackus looked at his tactical screen and could not believe what he saw. 7 alien warships had appeared from nowhere and were cutting through his fleet like it was made of paper. Their weapons were incredibly accurate, hitting weak points in Korthak armor that should have been impossible to target. What species are they? Brackus demanded. Unknown, Admiral. They are not in our database, but that was not entirely true. Deep in the Korthak military files was information about a species called humans. The file was marked with the highest danger warnings. It described creatures from a death world who fought like demons and never gave up. The Empire's intelligence service had recommended avoiding contact with humans at all costs. Brackus had never bothered to read those files. Captain Jong-Soo Park, commanding the destroyer Defiant, led his ship in a diving attack on 3 Korthak cruisers. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Mi-jin Seo, fired with perfect timing. The enemy ships tried to turn and fight, but they were too slow. Direct hit on Target 1, Mi-jin reported. Their main reactor is critical. Target 2 is breaking apart, added the sensor operator. Captain Hai-Rim Lee commanded the cruiser Thunderbolt as it engaged 2 enemy ships at once. Her tactical officer, Commander Bo-Ram Kim, coordinated the attack with surgical precision. The Korthak ships had more armor, but the humans were faster and smarter. Meanwhile, Captain Dae-ho Kim took the Indomitable straight at the largest enemy ship. Admiral Brackus's flagship was twice the size of any human vessel, but size did not matter when your enemy could hit you, and you could not hit back. Target their weapon systems, Dae-ho ordered. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. We might need prisoners for information. Engineer Tae-min Han worked his console like a musician playing an instrument, targeting their main gun batteries, Captain. Firing now. The Indomitable's weapons reached out across space and found their targets. One by one, the flagship's guns went silent. Admiral Brackus watched in horror as his mighty warship was systematically disarmed. On the planet's surface, the Korthak ground forces stopped their attack to look up at the sky. Burning wreckage from their own ships fell like metal rain. The soldiers who had seemed so confident just hours before now huddled in their positions, afraid. In the bunker, Minister Lyra pointed at a small screen that showed news feeds from around the planet. Look, the bombing has stopped. Zephyr could hardly believe it. Someone is fighting the Korthak in space. Someone is winning. Ambassador Nari felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. Maybe the humans are not what the council files say they are. Above the planet, the battle was almost over. 15 Korthak ships were destroyed or disabled. The remaining 5 tried to flee, but the human ships were faster. Captain Kim opened a channel to all enemy vessels. Attention, Korthak forces. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your lives will be spared. Continue fighting, and we will destroy you completely. Admiral Brackus sat on his damaged bridge, surrounded by smoke and sparks. His mighty fleet was broken. His invasion was ruined. The species his intelligence files had warned about had found him, and now he understood why the Empire feared them. These humans did not fight like the soft council species. They fought like predators, quick and deadly and without mercy for those who hurt innocents, but they had offered surrender terms, which meant they were not mindless killers. Signal our surrender, Brackus ordered, the words bitter in his mouth. As the Korthak ships powered down their weapons, Captain Daeho Kim finally allowed himself to relax. The space battle was won, but the real work was just beginning. They had to help the people on the planet below. Medical teams to the surface, he ordered. Engineering crews to assess damage. Security teams to secure Korthak prisoners. Let's show these people what humans are really like. Marine Colonel Mira Seo stood in the transport ship as it dropped through Veos Prime's atmosphere. Around her, 50 human Marines checked their weapons and equipment. They were the first wave, sent to secure landing zones and help the people trapped on the surface. Listen up, Mira said over the comm system. Our job is simple. Find civilians, protect them, and get them to safety. The Korthak ground forces are still down there, so stay alert. Major Changmin, her second-in-command, looked at the tactical display. Intelligence reports show about 3,000 Korthak soldiers scattered across the main city. They're using the civilians as shields. Captain Insung Baik commanded the heavy weapons team. Rules of engagement, Colonel? Protect the innocent at all costs, Mira replied. If the enemy threatens civilians, eliminate them. If they surrender, take prisoners. But remember, these people called for help and we answered. We will not let them down. The transport ships landed in a park that had once been beautiful. Now it was full of bomb craters and burning trees. The Marines spread out quickly, moving like they had trained together for years. Dr. Yejin Song landed with the second wave, bringing medical supplies and emergency equipment. Her team included nurse specialist Hyewan Kim and combat medic Yuri Park. They set up a field hospital in what used to be a school. First priority is treating the wounded, Dr. Song told her team. The Villani look different from humans, but their basic biology is similar enough. We can help them. Not far away, Sergeant First Class Donghyun Lim led his squad through the ruined streets. They moved carefully, watching for enemy soldiers and listening for sounds of people in trouble. Movement in that building, whispered Corporal Jong Ho Han, pointing to a damaged apartment complex. The squad moved closer. Through broken windows, they could see Villani families hiding in the basement. But 3 Korthak soldiers were also there, using the civilians to protect themselves from human attack. Dong Hyun used hand signals to position his men. The Korthak were bigger and stronger than humans, but they were also slower and less careful. They thought their size made them safe. Wait for my signal, Dong Hyun whispered into his comm. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Dong Hyun and 2 Marines entered through the front, while the rest of his squad came through the back and side windows. The fight was over in seconds. The Korthak soldiers never had a chance to hurt the civilians. A young Villani girl, no more than 6 years old, peeked out from behind her mother. She looked at Dong Hyun with wide, frightened eyes. Dong Hyun took off his helmet and smiled at her. It's okay now, he said gently. You're safe. Even though she could not understand his words, the girl could hear the kindness in his voice. She stopped crying. Across the city, similar scenes played out again and again. Human soldiers found groups of trapped civilians and risked their lives to save them. They shared their food and water. They carried wounded Villani to safety. They treated alien children as carefully as they would their own. Ambassador Nari emerged from the underground bunker with Elder Council leader Zephyr and the other survivors. They could hardly believe what they saw. Human soldiers were helping Villani people climb out of ruined buildings. Human doctors were treating injured civilians. I do not understand, Zephyr said quietly. The council files say humans are dangerous killers. Combat medic Yuri Park was nearby, bandaging the arm of an elderly Villani man. She heard Zephyr's words and looked up at him. We are dangerous, she said in careful translated speech, but only to those who hurt innocent people. As if to prove her point, a group of Korthak soldiers chose that moment to attack. They had been hiding in a nearby building, waiting for a chance to strike. They opened fire on the humans and civilians without warning. Yuri threw herself over the wounded Villani man, protecting him with her own body. Return fire from the human Marines was swift and deadly. The attacking Korthak were eliminated in moments. Yuri stood up, checking to make sure the old Volani was unhurt. Her own arm was bleeding from a grazing shot, but she ignored it. "See?" she said to Zephyr with a small smile. "Dangerous." In orbit, Captain Daeho Kim coordinated the surface operations from his ship. His weapons officer, Woo Jin Lee, provided precise fire support when ground teams needed it. Each shot was carefully aimed to destroy enemy positions without harming nearby civilians. Ground Team Alpha needs support, reported Communications Officer Yunbi Park. They have civilians trapped in a collapsed building, but there are enemy forces nearby. Daeho studied the tactical display. "Woojin, can you take out those enemy positions without damaging the building?" "Affirmative, Captain." Surgical strike, minimum power. The ship's weapons reached down from space with incredible precision. The Korthak soldiers threatening the rescue operation simply ceased to exist. But the building where civilians were trapped remained untouched. On the ground, Major Chang Min-o led the rescue of those trapped civilians. His engineering team used human technology to carefully move the heavy debris. Inside, they found 12 Volani adults and 8 children, who had been trapped for 2 days. "Take it slow," Changmin ordered. "The structure is unstable. If we move too fast, we could bring down the rest of the building." It took 4 hours of careful work, but every single person was rescued alive. As the last child was carried to safety, the Volani parents tried to thank the human soldiers. They pressed their hands together and bowed, which seemed to be how they showed gratitude. Changmin bowed back. "No thanks needed. This is what people do for each other." Admiral Sun Woo Park arrived with the main human fleet while the ground operations continued. His flagship, the Righteous Fury, was 3 times larger than any ship in Captain Kim's battle group. But instead of weapons, it carried supplies, medical equipment, and engineers to help rebuild. "Status report," Admiral Park requested as he took command of the operation. Fleet Tactician Commander Bo Young Kang pulled up the tactical display. "Ground operations proceeding smoothly, Admiral. We've eliminated most of the Korthak forces and rescued approximately 80,000 civilians so far." Intelligence Officer Lieutenant Commander Hyun-woo Nam added his report. "The Korthak commander, Admiral Brackus, is requesting negotiations. He wants to discuss terms for withdrawing from this system." Admiral Park considered this. The smart military move would be to accept the withdrawal and avoid further fighting. But these Korthak had attacked innocent people. They had bombed cities full of civilians. Justice demanded something more. "Tell Admiral Brackus that his terms are simple," Park said finally. "Complete withdrawal from all Volani space, immediate, no conditions, no negotiations. If any Korthak ship remains in this system in 24 hours, we will destroy it." Back on the surface, Colonel Mira Seo was coordinating the final sweep of the city when she received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Nari had come to see the human operations for herself. "I wanted to thank you personally," Nari said through the translation device. "My people owe you their lives." Mira looked around at her Marines who were sharing their military rations with hungry Volani children. "We were just doing our job, Ambassador. Your job is to save people you have never met. People from a different world, a different species." Mira thought about that question. "Our job is to protect those who cannot protect themselves. It does not matter what species they are." Dr. Song approached them, wiping her hands on a medical towel. She had been working for 16 hours straight, treating wounded Volani alongside human casualties. "How are the injured?" Colonel Seo asked. "Better than expected," Dr. Song replied. "Volani biology is surprisingly compatible with human medical techniques. We've been able to help most of the serious cases." Nari watched the human doctor with wonder. "In the council files, it says your people are from a world so dangerous that it creates killers. How can killers also be healers?" Dr. Song smiled tiredly. "Our world is dangerous, that's true. But danger teaches you to value life. When you know how easily life can be lost, you fight harder to save it." As night fell over Veos Prime, the human fleet remained in orbit like guardian angels. The Korthak forces had either fled or been captured. The immediate threat was over, but the work of rebuilding had just begun. In the bunker that had become the temporary Volani Government Center, Elder Zephyr called an emergency meeting. "The humans have saved us," he said to the assembled officials. "But what do they want in return? No species helps another without expecting something." Minister Lyra had spent the day watching human soldiers. Maybe they are different from other species. Maybe they help because it is right, not because they expect payment. Ambassador Nari nodded. I have seen their soldiers share their food with our children. I have seen their doctors work until they collapse from exhaustion to save our wounded. These are not the actions of conquerors. Outside, Human and Vellani worked side by side to clear debris and set up emergency shelters. Language barriers meant nothing when people needed help. Kindness translated perfectly in any language. The galaxy was about to learn something new about the species it called Deathworlders. 3 weeks had passed since the Korthak fleet retreated from Veos Prime. The burning cities were slowly healing, and Vellani people were beginning to smile again. But the real surprise was how the humans had stayed to help with the rebuilding. Elder Council leader Zephyr walked through the streets of his capital city with Admiral Sunwoo Park. Everywhere they looked, humans and Vellani worked together. Human engineers showed Vellani workers how to use advanced building materials. Vellani artists helped human soldiers paint colorful murals on the walls of new homes. I expected you to leave after defeating the Korthak, Zephyr said honestly. Most species would consider their duty finished. Admiral Park watched a human marine teaching Vellani children how to play a simple Earth game with a ball. Our duty is not finished until you are safe and strong enough to protect yourselves. They stopped at what had once been the city's main hospital. It was being rebuilt with human technology that could heal injuries faster and treat diseases that had once been deadly to the Vellani. Dr. Yejin Song worked inside with Dr. Luxara, the chief Vellani medical officer. They were sharing knowledge, learning from each other. Human medicine was more advanced in some ways, but Vellani biology was fascinating to study. Your people's healing abilities are remarkable, Dr. Song said as she examined Vellani tissue samples. You recover from injuries much faster than humans do. Dr. Luxara looked at the human medical equipment with wonder. And your diagnostic tools can see inside the body without cutting it open. Such knowledge could save millions of lives across our world. They worked together to create new medical procedures that combined the best of both species' knowledge. It was not just about fixing the damage from the war anymore. It was about making life better for everyone. Outside, Chief Engineer Tai Min Han supervised the installation of defensive systems around the city. But these were not weapons. They were shields and early warning systems that would protect civilians if anyone ever attacked Veos Prime again. Lieutenant Commander Sung Ho Park, Han's assistant, worked with Vellani technicians to teach them how to maintain the new equipment. The shield generator needs to be checked every 10 days. Seung Ho explained through the translation system. If you see any of these warning lights, call us immediately. The Vellani engineer, a young woman named Kira, took careful notes. What if you are not here to call? What if your fleet is far away? Seung Ho smiled. We are not going anywhere. Admiral Park has decided to establish a permanent base in this system. We will always be here to help. This was news to Kira, but it did not surprise her. In the weeks since the battle, she had watched the humans carefully. They did not act like conquerors or temporary visitors. They acted like people who planned to stay and be good neighbors. Ambassador Nari had her own meeting with Admiral Park that day. She had been chosen to speak for her people in discussions about the future. The conversation took place in what had been the Vellani government building, now repaired and protected by human shield technology. My people want to offer you something in return for your help, Nari began. We know you must want payment for your services. Admiral Park sat across from her at a simple table. His diplomatic advisor, Commander Soo-Jin Lee, and cultural attaché Lieutenant Hanul Bey were with him, but they let him do most of the talking. What kind of payment were you thinking of? Admiral Park asked. Territory, perhaps. A continent for your people to settle. Or mineral rights to our asteroid belt. We have rare metals that might be valuable to your empire. Admiral Park was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. Ambassador, we do not want your territory or your minerals. Nari was confused. Then what do you want? Friendship, alliance, the promise that if anyone threatens you again, you will call us for help. This was not what Nari had expected. That is all? That is everything, Admiral Park replied. In a galaxy full of predators, having friends you can trust is the most valuable thing of all. Commander Soo-Jin Lee spoke up. We would also like to establish trade relationships, cultural exchange programs, and scientific cooperation agreements. But these would benefit both our peoples equally. Lieutenant Hanul Bey added. We are very interested in Villani art and music. Your people create beautiful things. We would love to learn from you. Nari felt tears in her eyes. You really do not want to conquer us? Ambassador, Admiral Park said gently. We have our own worlds. We do not need yours. What we need are friends who share our values. People who believe that the strong should protect the weak, not prey upon them. That afternoon, Captain Dae-ho Kim, now promoted to Commodore, visited the rebuilt school where Dr. Song had first set up her field hospital. Villani children were back in their classrooms. But now some of those classes included human teachers. Sergeant First Class Dong-hyun Lim, the soldier who had rescued the little girl on the first day, was teaching a group of young Villani about Earth animals. He showed them pictures of dogs and cats, horses and elephants. This is a dog, he said, pointing to a picture of a golden retriever. On Earth, dogs are friends to humans. They help us and protect us, and we take care of them. One of the Villani children, a boy named Zap, raised his hand. Are humans friends to other species too? Like dogs are friends to you? Dong-hyun thought about that question carefully. We try to be. When someone needs help, we want to be the kind of friend who comes running. The little girl he had saved on the first day, whose name was Kayla, tugged on his uniform sleeve. Will you stay and be our friend? For as long as you want us to, Dong-hyun promised. But the real test of human intentions came when the Galactic Council finally responded to the crisis. A council diplomatic ship arrived in the system, carrying representatives from 3 major council species. The lead diplomat was an Altarian named High Speaker Vex. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. His species was known for being very formal and believing in proper procedures for everything. High Speaker Vex met with both the Villani leadership and Admiral Park aboard the human flagship. He brought with him Subdelegate Korth of the Zephyrians, a trading species, and Cultural Observer Nim of the Centauri Collective. This situation is highly irregular. High Speaker Vex began. The Villani Republic sent their distress call to Council frequencies. They should have waited for Council response. Admiral Park kept his voice polite but firm. With respect, High Speaker, your response would have arrived too late. These people would be dead. Subdelegate Korth, who looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, spoke next. The concern is precedent. If non-Council species begin responding to Council distress calls, it disrupts established protocols. Ambassador Nari could not stay quiet. Protocols? My people were dying. These humans saved us when no one else could. Cultural Observer Nim, whose species looked almost human except for their golden skin and silver eyes, tried to be diplomatic. No one questions the good intentions of the human rescue, but there are procedures. Forms to be filed, proper channels to be followed. Admiral Park stood up from his chair. While you were following procedures, the Korthak Empire was murdering civilians. 3 million Villani people are alive today because we did not wait for proper channels. Commander Bo-young Kang, who had been quietly taking notes, spoke up. High Speaker, we have documented evidence of Korthak war crimes. They targeted schools, hospitals, and civilian shelters. This was not a military conquest. It was attempted genocide. The room fell silent. Even the Council diplomats could not argue with such evidence. Finally, High Speaker Vex spoke again. What are human intentions regarding this system? Permanent Defensive Alliance, Admiral Park replied. We will maintain a fleet presence to protect the Villani from future attacks. We will share technology and establish trade relationships. We will respect Villani sovereignty completely. And what do you want in return? Nothing they are not willing to give freely. Cultural Observer Nim looked fascinated by this. In our studies of various species, we have never encountered a civilization that offers protection without demanding tribute or territory. Lieutenant Hanul Bey smiled at that. Perhaps you have never studied species from Deathworlds before? When survival depends on cooperation, you learn that helping others helps yourself. Subdelegate Korth was still worried about economics. This alliance could disrupt trade patterns. Other species might expect similar protection arrangements. Good, Admiral Park said simply. The galaxy would be a better place if more species helped each other, instead of preying on the weak. As the meeting ended, High Speaker Vex made an official statement for the Council records. The Council recognizes the sovereignty of the Villani Republic and their right to form defensive alliances with any species they choose. It was not exactly approval, but it was not condemnation either. That night, as the council diplomats prepared to leave, Ambassador Nari visited the human fleet one more time. She found Admiral Park on the observation deck of his ship, looking down at Veos Prime. "Your world is beautiful," he said as she joined him, "green and blue like Earth, full of life and hope." "It is beautiful again because of you," Nari replied. "Admiral, I have a question. Why did you really come? What makes humans so different from other species?" Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. "On Earth we have a saying, no one is safe until everyone is safe." 6 months after the Battle of Veos Prime, the galaxy had begun to change. Word of the human rescue had spread across thousands of worlds, carried by traders, diplomats, and refugees who had heard the story. Admiral Sunwoo Park stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the latest group of ships arrive in the Vallani system. These were not warships or traders. They were refugee vessels carrying families from 3 different worlds, all fleeing from Korthak. "Attacks. That makes 12 refugee convoys this month," reported Fleet Tactician Commander Bo Young, Kang. "The Korthak Empire is expanding faster than ever." Intelligence. Officer Lieutenant Commander Hyun Woo, Nam pulled up star charts on his display. "They are hitting worlds that cannot defend themselves. Always the same pattern. Fast attack, brutal occupation, then they move on to the next target." Park nodded grimly. The Korthak had learned nothing from their defeat at Veos Prime. If anything, they had become more vicious. They were trying to rebuild their fleet by conquering weaker species faster, but they had made one crucial mistake. Every species they attacked now knew there was someone who would answer their calls for help. Signal from the surface. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Sujin Park. "Ambassador Nari requests permission to come aboard with several other delegates." Permission granted. An hour later, Admiral Park met with representatives from 7 different species in the flagship's main conference room. Ambassador Nari was there for the Vallani, but she was not alone. The Karathi had sent Minister Vek. The Tailani were represented by Speaker Rel. Even the proud Nexari had sent an observer, Commander Thex. All of them had one thing in common. Their worlds had been attacked by the Korthak Empire in recent months. "The situation is getting worse," Minister Vek began. He was a Karathi, a species that looked like tall, thin humans with gray skin and large ears. "The Korthak attacked our outer colonies last week. We lost contact with 3 mining settlements." Speaker Rel spoke next. The Tailani looked like walking trees, tall and brown with branch-like arms. "Our trade ships are being captured. The Korthak are using our own people as slaves to build their new warships." Commander Thex was the most unusual-looking of the group. The Nexari had blue skin and 6 arms, and they were known for being fierce warriors themselves. "My people have fought the Korthak for 2 years. We cannot win alone." Ambassador Nari looked around the table. "We all know why we are here. The Galactic Council moves too slowly. By the time they decide to act, entire species could be extinct." Admiral Park listened to each report carefully. The pattern was clear. The Korthak Empire had decided that if they could not defeat humanity in direct battle, they would expand so quickly that even humans could not stop them everywhere at once. "What are you asking of us?" Park asked. Minister Vek answered first. "Alliance protection. The same arrangement you made with the Vallani." "We can offer trade agreement," Speaker Rel added. "The Tailani are master shipbuilders. We could help expand your fleet." Commander Thex leaned forward. "The Nexari are warriors. We can fight alongside your people. Together we could stop the Korthak expansion permanently." Park was quiet for a moment. What they were asking would change everything. A single defensive alliance with the Vallani was manageable. A multi-species coalition would require massive resources and careful coordination. But the alternative was watching entire civilizations be destroyed, while the Galactic Council held committee meetings. "I need to consult with Earth Command," Park said finally. "This decision is too big for one admiral to make." 3 days later, the answer came back from Earth in the form of a massive fleet. Admiral Heejin Cho arrived with 40 warships and a simple message from the Human Defense Council. Earth Command's official response, Admiral Cho announced at the next meeting, is that humanity will extend protection to any peaceful species threatened by aggressive empires. The Human Defense Fleet is hereby authorized to establish permanent bases in allied systems. The Room erupted in surprised voices as the alien delegates spoke excitedly in their own languages. But Admiral Cho was not finished. However, this protection comes with responsibilities. Allied species must agree to defend each other, not just rely on human protection. This will be a true alliance of equals. Commander Thek smiled, showing sharp teeth. The Nexari accept these terms. We are ready to fight alongside humans. The Talani will build ships for the Alliance fleet, Speaker Rel agreed. Our shipyards can triple human production. Minister Vec nodded for the Karathi. We have the best sensor technology in the galaxy. We can provide early warning systems for all allied worlds. Within a week, the Human-Vellani Defense Pact had become the Multi-Species Defense Alliance. Captain Daeho Kim, now promoted to Admiral, was placed in command of the new joint fleet. His flagship was no longer a purely human vessel. Commander Jae Ho Yoon served as his tactical officer, but now he worked alongside Nexari warrior Tex and Tylani strategist Veltar. The bridge crew was a mixture of species all working together. The first test of the new alliance came sooner than expected. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Hyun-Woo Nam, we are receiving a distress call from the Althan system. Korthak forces are attacking the Althan homeworld. Kim looked at his mixed-species bridge crew. The Althan never answered our invitation to join the alliance. That does not matter, said Tex, the Nexari warrior. They called for help. We answer. Veltar, the Tylani strategist, pulled up tactical displays. My people have trading posts in the Althan system. They are peaceful merchants. They cannot fight the Korthak alone. Admiral Kim opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships set course for the Althan system. Maximum speed. We have work to do. The joint fleet that jumped to hyperspace was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships flew alongside Tylani cruisers and Nexari destroyers. Vellani support vessels carried medical supplies and engineering teams. Karathi scouts provided intelligence on enemy positions. When they arrived at the Althan system, they found a familiar sight. Korthak warships in orbit, bombing civilian targets on the planet below. But this time, the Korthak fleet was larger. Admiral Brackus had learned from his previous defeat. 43 enemy vessels, reported the sensor operator. They outnumber us 2-1. Admiral Kim was not worried. Signal from Admiral Brackus, sir. He wants to negotiate. Put him on screen. Admiral Brackus appeared on the main viewer, looking as arrogant as ever. Admiral Kim, I see you have brought friends this time. Admiral Brackus, I see you still enjoy murdering innocent people. The galaxy is changing, human. The strong rule the weak. It has always been this way. Kim looked around his bridge at the faces of 4 different species, all united in purpose. You are right. The galaxy is changing, but not in the way you think. The battle that followed became known as the Battle of Althan Prime. It was the first true test of multi-species cooperation in combat, and the results surprised everyone. Nexari ships, crewed by natural warriors, engaged the enemy head-on while human vessels used precision strikes to disable key targets. Tylani cruisers, built for speed and maneuverability, flanked the Korthak formation. Vellani support ships coordinated rescue operations on the planet's surface. Commander Thex commanded a squadron of mixed human Nexari ships with deadly efficiency. Target their command vessel, she ordered. If we cut off their head, the body will fall. Captain Bo Young Kang, now commanding a joint task force, led Karathi scouts in a reconnaissance mission that identified weak points in the enemy formation. All ships concentrate fire on coordinates Mark 7. Their defensive grid has a gap there. The coordination was perfect. Each species contributed their strengths while covering the weaknesses of their allies. The Korthak fleet, designed to fight individual species with predictable tactics, could not adapt to this new kind of warfare. Within 4 hours, the battle was over. Half the Korthak ships were destroyed, and the rest surrendered or fled. Admiral Brackus himself was captured when his flagship was disabled by combined fire from 3 different species. On the planet's surface, Althan civilians emerged from their shelters to find alien soldiers helping them, feeding them, treating their wounded. But these were not conquerors. They were rescuers who asked for nothing in return except friendship. The Althan leadership, led by Prime Minister Zale, officially joined the Multi-Species Defense Alliance the next day. But the real change came in the weeks that followed. Species across the galaxy began sending messages to the Alliance headquarters, which had been established on Veos Prime. They were not all asking for protection. Many wanted to contribute to the Alliance effort. The Harani offered their advanced manufacturing technology. The Quell provided their expertise in food production. The Mathari, who were master engineers, helped design new defensive systems. Within a year, the Multi-Species Defense Alliance included 47 different species. The Korthak Empire, faced with united opposition for the first time, began to fragment. Some Korthak worlds even rebelled against their own government and asked to join the alliance. Admiral Kim stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking out at the largest gathering of friendly ships in galactic history. Hundreds of vessels from dozens of species moved in perfect formation. They were no longer just a defense force.